Recording live with Radio Spätkauf at Podfest Berlin 2024, Megan handed out free cans so that the audience wouldn't have to get through the news sober, which, frankly, should be part of every media subscription service these days. Then Konrad gets weirdly pedantic about crime stats, Izzy explains why Germany is always losing the energy transition, and Joel finds some good news about Berlin's U-Bahn seat covers. And there's more fascism in Germany, obviously. But we have passing minstrels. Hey nonny nonny.
In Berlin's heart, where news is unveiled, Megan and Konrad with German tales. The German news, it's tough to bear, but with Megacans, they're ready to head Konrad, daily news at hand. Megan feels to spare time to crack those cans. With each sip she takes, the mag is her shield. But will it last the news? 'Cause that was the deal.
Radio Spätkauf. Berlin News in English.
It's 10th of September 2024. This is Radio Spätkauf, Berlin's news podcast, recording live at Podfest 2024 alongside the brilliant and wonderful cast of Megan's Megacan. We are doing this in front of our fantastic live audience at the House of Colour. I'm Izzy Choxy.
I'm Joel Delroy from Radio Spätkauf.
I'm Megan from Megan's Megacan.
And hi, I'm Konrad Werner, also from Megan's Megacan.
Coming up... So coming up today on this special collaboration episode, we are doing a crossover talking about both Berlin and German news, blowing all your minds with the fact that we also have, at Radio Spätkauf, some knowledge of things that go on outside of the Ringbahn. We will also cover the state elections in Saxony, Thuringia, and look forward to the election in a few weeks in Brandenburg.
And we'll cover some Berlin topics, such as how you can get free money for fixing your old electronic objects, and why one of Berlin's best-known museum draw cards could get the AFD treatment and be sent back to where she came from.
So, Radio Spätkauf, Spätis and Megas, we are coming together, which seemed like quite a natural alliance, because usually my one job on our podcast, which has neither these little fancy things of sound or a script, I just show up with a bag of cans. Is anyone unfamiliar with the phenomenon of the Megacan? Okay, so allow me to demonstrate. This is what's going to make the news bearable. It is a pre-mixed cocktail in a can, not mega because of the size of the can, but mega because they are 10%. That's a lot of percents for this, trust me. Okay, what I'm going to do is we've got some fancy ones that you guys might choose, and then I'm going to run through the audience with a bag of cans.
Okay.
You got them for the audience too?
Yeah, the audience.
Hi, it's a big bag of cans.
Yeah.
I'm not, okay. We have Jack and Ginger. We have a new one, Limoncello. That's fancy and 10.5.
Everyone wants
we
that
have
one.
Shattlers, Gin Basil Smash.
Sounds horrible.
We have what would be called, where I come from, a vodka and white, which is an Absolute and Sprite. The Japanese ones, which are really bad and no one will want.
Oh yeah, called one.
Another vodka lemon. Okay, guys, you need to choose one of yours, and then I'm going to run. Oh, there's also a rum and coke if anyone's feeling crazy. Anyone who wants a rum and coke? Any rum drinkers? Got a theory about rum drinkers. Oh!
Izzy chooses the rum.
I want to hear the theory.
The theory?
Just really weird.
Probably should have heard that before I chose it.
Yeah, possibly, but you've chosen it now.
No, it's fine. I'll stay with it.
Okay, choose your cans. There's another Japanese one.
I'm going to be the odd man out and be the only one who can't drink, because I actually have to work after this, so I'm not allowed to drink, contractually.
I've seen Joel being very professional after Megacan still, but I think, okay.
So for the audience at home, Megan is playing Oprah right now, giving away freebies to the entire audience. This Have you got any cars to give away by any chance, Megan? Can we is there a...
So, just for the listeners, apparently this is brought to you by the Patreon backers of Megan's Megacan. Yeah. Another round of applause.
Well, yes. And on that note, we should say if you would like more Megacans handed out at live recordings, both of Megan's Megacan and Radio Spätkauf, please donate because it could really help.
Patreon.com/Megan's Megacan.
Or if you prefer support our podcast, depending on who you like more by the end of this episode, you can find the link on our website.
We're not buying Megacans, though. No, okay.
All right, everybody. The suggestion from the audience is everyone's going to open up their cans on the count of 3, and we're going to try and capture this noise. So we have to do it. Are everybody ready?
Okay.
Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. I hope that sounded as good on mic as it did in real life. That was a beautiful bit of Foley right there. And now we're ready to hit the next stinger and continue with our show.
I never said my line.
Yeah, so how is everyone? It is back to school for you, Megan, and it is new to school for my son, who has just started school this week at the age of 6. So yeah, if you guys saw people walking around with these big cones, little children walking around with these massive cones, they're actually filled with little presents and sweets as well. And it's so that they enjoy coming to school and then get disappointed every single day after that.
Yeah.
That school isn't about sweets and presents.
Yeah.
So it's setting quite high expectations, I think.
Yeah, because from what I understand, I work in secondary, but primary school in Germany, because they start later than we do in the UK and Ireland, it's serious from the get-go.
Yeah. We had like a ceremony, and the like slightly older kids like sang songs to us. And if I'm completely honest, I don't want to like diss the school that I'm at already, but I wasn't that impressed with the singing. And I was like, if this is supposed to show me what my kid is going to learn in a year of classes, I'm not that impressed. But I think I'll be the worst parent. But I'll keep it passive aggressive. I'll never say anything out loud in German, which they speak.
Well, passive aggressive is the German way, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, Joel, how are you doing?
Well, I'm happy that kids are back at school because it means they won't be going to the pool where I like to hang out. I'm doing great because it's been a fantastic August, and with beautiful hot weather. I'm terrified at the climate implications of that, but at least it's meant that I can get to the lake practically every day, or the pool every second day. Let's just hope the planet can somehow cope with all of this as well. But
just try not to think about it.
That does seem to be the only coping strategy possible
or drink
at
Mega.
this point. Yeah.
You know, you can't drink it, but I can. I'm doing it for you.
Yes.
How do you feel about doing a collaboration with Radio Spätkauf?
Very excited. I'm a bit confused because this isn't in the script, is it?
It's not, no.
I'm supposed to be improvising.
It's unscripted.
Okay, all right, okay. I thought I'd lost my place.
No, you are allowed to say things that are not in the script.
Yeah.
That's part of our deal. Yes.
Yeah. No, I'm very excited to be here, and I'm very much looking forward to the next hour.
Well, let's get on with it then.
So, in news, sure to keep the easily horrified southern rich Germans out of our housing market, well, at least a few of them, last week a Turkish-German rapper known as Çağla was gunned down on the streets of Berlin's red light district.
I didn't know Berlin had a red light district. I sort of assumed it was all of it. I don't know.
Well, it's
like genuinely.
Sort of just darker red bit. So slightly more red.
Well, apparently the slightly darker red part of Berlin is around Potsdamer Straße and Bülowstraße in the Schöneberg district of Berlin. And it's been famous for being Berlin's red light district for decades now. So Çağla was killed while sitting in his red BMW, waiting at a traffic light by a shooter in a vehicle that pulled up next to his and shot into the car. Çağla's older brother, who was 44 at the time, also was shot and injured, as well as a 42-year-old Brazilian man who was simply cycling next to the car at the time of the shooting.
Of all the things that could happen to me on a bicycle when I'm riding in Berlin, being shot randomly on the sidelines of a crime incident has never occurred to me as one of them. So it won't make me ride any differently, though.
In general, violent crime in Germany is apparently on the rise. According to police statistics, which are the only stats we have, in 2023 there was a year-on-year increase of 8.6% to 214,099 cases, which would be a 15-year high. There was also an increase of 7% in cases of serious and dangerous bodily harm to over 154,000 cases reported last year, and general bodily harm, as opposed to just dangerous bodily harm.
I always wonder about those.
Increased also by the same percentage to over 400,000 cases. Overall, the number of crimes committed in Germany rose to just under 6 million cases in 2023, the first year without any pandemic restrictions.
Can I ask, does that also include police attacking peaceful protesters? That seems to also be on the increase.
Well, that's the problem with crime stats in general, is that no one really knows what they really mean, because the only people who count them are the police. And as you know, in a democracy, courts are supposed to decide what crimes are and not the police, for one thing. But anyway, the crime stats come from the police, so they're a bit iffy. They're always a bit iffy, and the way that these stats all came from the federal report, which comes out once a year, and they get those stats by asking all the different state police departments to send them their stats. But what they don't say is that all the different state police departments count what is which type of crime differently. So it's all a bit vague. For example, this distinction between serious bodily harm and general bodily harm, that's me shrugging, by the way. For people. What does that mean?
It's a visual medium.
Yeah, and also there was a big thing about knife crime recently, which is a big issue in Germany at the moment. Like, every stabbing is reported a lot now, but Germany has only been collecting knife crime stats for the last 3 years. So criminologists that I was talking to were saying, well, we don't really know what that means, because we can't. 3 years is too short a time span to even make up any trends. So it's all a bit wishy-washy. So with those caveats, there is a rise in crime in Germany.
So with the same caveats, apparently Berlin is now the most dangerous state to live in Germany. Burglaries are up 35%, and violent crime is higher than in Bremen, Hamburg, and Saxony-Anhalt. And Bavaria remains the safest state to live in. So a police state apparently has some upsides, statistically at least. But according to what you just said, we shouldn't really be that worried, because these stats are not exactly... What we should be looking for is the conviction rate. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for example.
Right, okay.
Or anything. I mean, obviously we need some stats, otherwise, what would we talk about in the news? What does anyone talk about? But these are the only stats we have, and they are a bit flawed. That's all I want to say. Because often it's not mentioned in media reports.
So be very afraid, I guess? Yeah? No, is that the message?
Fear everything.
Or a little bit more afraid than you are in Bavaria. Back to school in Berlin doesn't just mean cones full of sweets. Apparently it also means not getting your lunch on time. So the lunch food caterer 40 Seconds failed to deliver food to numerous schools in Berlin last week, leaving schools to scramble to make sandwiches and get pizza deliveries last minute to feed classes of returning kids from holiday. Neukölln was particularly hard hit, with 21 schools going without food on Tuesday, having been told in the morning that there was no food coming. It seems a mixture of deeply frustrating bureaucracy and possible power outages might have been the root cause. The caterer claims that there were power outages on Monday that left them scrambling to achieve Tuesday's orders in one of their districts. However, previous delays and non-deliveries point to wider problems with the caterer that they have said are to do with only signing contracts for food deliveries over the summer due to Berlin's slow procedures on supplier procurement.
When I was a school kid, if I got told we're getting pizza delivered, I think it would be the best day over the whole year.
It is. They love that. They'll not be happy to go back to their normal school dinners. But this seems... I'm also a teacher, and yeah, they're like way behind. Our school doesn't have like the budget yet, I think, for the year we're already in. So,
can I ask, do German schools feed all their kids?
I don't know. We are private school, so I'm a bit out of that. I don't know what happens. Anyone know what happens with like free school meals, stuff like that?
And is this like included in the school fees? Is this something that happens all the kids get?
I don't know.
No.
I mean, my kids at school, to be honest, I know nothing about anything of my new school.
What, are you just sending your kid off to school with no lunch and hoping they're
Does
getting
he get
meals,
fed?
He gets a snack box, but I'm also not sure what I'm supposed to put in a snack box. At the Kita, they were very judgy about snack boxes.
Let me tell you, as much chocolate as you can stuff
Yeah,
in
that's
there.
what I'm thinking.
Chips,
Keep the energy high, the mood high.
Little cheese snacks, they're great for trading, if I recall.
Throwing in the bin.
So today was his first day?
Yesterday was his first day. Yeah,
Did he come home hungry?
I don't want to get too into of my kid, but I mean, like, he's sort of, he doesn't really eat food.
Well, he's the one kid. He's the one kid in Neukölln who's fine. He's delighted. He's like, no wasted time.
Honestly, he'd be like.
But yes, a bit of an issue because hungry children can't learn. But that might not matter if there's no teacher there anyway. Forget school dinners and Schultüten. What the Berlin government would really like someone to deliver to them is 695 qualified teachers. The number of unfilled posts at the start of this school year, which works out as slightly less than one per school. So it's not terrible, and it is getting better. It's down from the 1,500 that Gunther Wunsch, our education secretary, and horrifyingly Kai Wegner's official steady girlfriend, she inherited that 1,500 when she took over as education secretary. Great that these positions are being filled, but it's also worth noting that the majority of those taking these jobs do not have teaching qualifications. There's like a Quereinsteiger, lateral entry thing, which is great. And you can learn to be a teacher if you already have a degree, but that also requires a lot of support that I'm not sure Berlin is giving or able to give. They've also plugged like some of the gaps by having student teachers who do a year and a half of kind of teaching experience and things, and they've gone from 7 teaching lessons a week to 10, which doesn't sound like a lot unless you've ever taught a 45-minute lesson as a student teacher. I can see some nods, where the space-time continuum ceases to function as normal, and those extra 3 lessons a week might be enough to just like push you over the edge that you are already very close to, and we don't want any new teachers quitting. The good news is that as of next school year, wannabe teachers who might only qualify to teach one subject, if you just have a degree in one subject, you can now do that. You can become a Quereinsteiger, and you should. It's actually fine.
So is this a call for people listening to maybe consider a career in teaching?
Genuinely, if you're thinking about it, give me a shout. Because I think it's also a cool way that we could change some stuff in Germany.
And what do you need? You need a bachelor, master's?
You need a bachelor's degree.
Okay.
That might be a
Quizzical
lie.
face.
I only have a
the
bachelor's
listener.
degree and a teaching qualification. I think it should be fine.
But to be a state teacher in Germany, don't you need a special?
So we're not going to start with that because this...
Right, yeah.
I think there's so many gaps being plugged. You can get work
Right.
as a teacher if that's what you wanted. Like there's ways in, I think. They're going to have to...
How much German knowledge or what
Well, that's
do you
why I was trying to avoid him saying technically you should have C2, but I think you can start with C1.
need? Okay.
Which is fine.
For some people, not for others. Just saying. It's hard, the grammar and,
Oh, it's awful. Don't get me wrong, but you can
Tests
pass the
and
exam.
stuff.
We can get you through the exam. You don't actually have to
mean-
learn German. You want to hear mine? It's definitely not C2.
Well,
I got the
apparently,
certificate.
Yeah.
Spoken like a true teacher. You don't actually need to learn the things. You just need to pass the exam.
Dude, like spoken like a true German. I've never felt more like angedeutscht than being like, oh, well, my German's... I'm really confident now just because I have this silly certificate from the Goethe Institute. I'm not that good.
Ooh, Goethe.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, sorry. Short news.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is that the end of it? Okay. I wasn't sure where we were in this long paragraph here.
the script is becoming like a fourth character in this whole podcast.
In news that may well send even more people flocking to right-wing extremist parties, Volkswagen has announced in the last weeks that it plans to close plants in Germany for the first time in its history. Volkswagen is struggling with demand and says it needs to close the plants to avoid billions of euros in costs that will not be made up for in sales of the vehicles which are down year on year. This is being tied more generally to European car companies attempting to fund a switch to electric vehicles, which is mandated by an EU law outlawing the sale of combustion engine vehicles by 2035.
But it's also like a clear case of a European company being way too late to the party when it comes to electric vehicles. You know, European companies are trying to compete with Chinese car companies that have the added bonus of huge government support, cheap supply, and access to raw materials far more easily. So we're kind of like again losing this race in terms of transition to affordable, mass-produced electric cars. You know, we lost the race to solar. We're losing the race when it comes to wind turbines and creating the stock of wind turbines that we need for transition. And we're also now at risk of losing races like keystone industries, like the steel industry as well. So yeah, we have the most ambitious legislation in the world when it comes to green transition, but actual like implementation is going way too slow. And I think one of the major problems that we have is that the democratic countries or the democracy under which we live is kind of being so strained by the pull to the right and this constant feeling that centrist parties have to quit the green crap in order to kind of appease the right. But all that means, quitting the green crap, all that means is that we're going to be buying cheap electric vehicles from China. All that means is that we're currently buying cheap solar from China. We're not making our own. It's not making jobs in Germany. So, I mean, that's what frustrates me so much, is that actually all of this right-wing stuff is a way for us to become way more dependent on China than we would be otherwise. So that's a pitch for you to not, as listeners of this podcast, if you're interested in like jobs staying in Germany, vote for the parties that are actually thinking about transition.
So when I heard about Volkswagen, suffering, I had a bit of Schadenfreude and thought, well, serves you right, because this is a car company that cheated on its emissions tests in order to sell cars and make money while defrauding its customers and polluting the environment. It hasn't caught up, and it didn't bother trying to pivot to electric cars. It should have done so, a decade ago when it saw the trends, and it hasn't made any effort to change. And I was thinking, well, it serves them right. They can go down the toilet for all I care. But Konrad, am I right in thinking that the Volkswagen is actually quite tied to the German state governments? I mean, a state government is a big shareholder of Volkswagen, and also it's a huge part of the economy, and it could actually hurt us all if it disappears. Am I wrong?
Also, Volkswagen is a global company. Volkswagen is fine. Workers in Volkswagen are not fine.
Okay.
So that's the distinction that you need to make, I think.
But could this have ramifications on, German GDP? And
yeah, we're fucked.
But isn't it all ridiculous anyway? Because if we all had electric cars, that isn't any good for the environment either, is it?
I mean, that is like a long and slightly boring debate. But, sorry.
I mean, we just need less cars generally. So
yeah, for sure. But I think it's important to know Volkswagen is very connected to obviously Porsche, and the CEO of Porsche is best mates with Lindner, who's, I know he's like a super big favorite on your podcast. But they were angling for all of this e-fuels rather than electric cars, and to water down the legislation when it came to phasing out the combustion engine by 2035. They wanted instead to have this e-fuel exemption, which basically meant that car companies could carry on creating combustion engines as long as they were e-fuel ready. The idea of e-fuels is absurd. There will never be e-fuels. E-fuels are not a real thing. It's just a way for car companies to carry on. It's like when gas companies say hydrogen ready. That's not a thing either. So, I mean, it's this thing of this cat and mouse game of legislation comes. It's really bold, and it means that Europe is on the front foot, and means that, okay, we're going to get transition before anyone else, and we're going to be able to sell all of our stuff to the rest of the world. And then, car companies and lobbyists and rich people in Europe and right-wing parties water it down so much that we end up losing those races to China and the US.
In case you're wondering, Izzy is actually an expert on this stuff. She actually does this for a day job. She actually writes policies on climate issues for her day job.
Yeah,
so you can trust what she says.
Finally get that some stuff of that into into Radio Spätkauf because I rarely get to talk about climate stuff. But yeah, if anyone's really interested in this stuff, there's a new report that just came out from Mario Draghi. If you're like kind of a bit of a policy nerd, came out 2 days ago, and it's called the Draghi Report. Oh no, 1 day ago. It's called the Draghi Report. It's kind of like a big deal. And if you want to see some really depressing news about the state of the European economy, read that, and then you'll be crying by the end of it.
No, thank you. But I'd like you to summarize it for me while I have a drink, which is the arrangement I have with Konrad here about the news. Thank you. Should I move on?
Yes.
I'm going to do a Berlin bit now. It's Berlin Art Week. Woo! Running from 11th September to the 15th September, this is the 13th time that the city has hosted the event, which now encompasses over 100 venues with over 300 events. It's the largest annual art event for the city. This year, the organisers of Berlin Art Week have teamed up with the Berlin Art Link to create a bunch of curated tours of the festival. We will link this in the bio. Keeping very much up to the times, there are plenty of galleries showcasing Berlin was doing it cooler than anyone else was doing in the 90s memorabilia, for instance, the photo exhibition at C&O Berlin of a group show featuring Ostkreuz Agency's photographs of post-1989 Berlin. Anyone got any Art Week plans? I need to go see some art. They give you free wine in cups, don't they? Anyone doing anything at Art Week? Any artists you can plug?
No,
Doesn't seem to be our demographic.
no.
No, everyone
just
just
one at the
came here for the depressing
like-
news. Continue.
We didn't come here for that. Tell us something about fascism.
All right. Soon enough, we'll get to that. But before we do, are you about to throw out an old malfunctioning electronic item and buy a new one? Well, before you go out and put it on the street with an ironic Zuverschenken sign, consider this. The city of Berlin will pay you up to 200 euros to repair your electronic item instead. Starting on September 17, you can apply for funding for repairs at any business or workshop or repair cafe that might do this, repair things, including the purchase of spare parts. And you'll get up to 50% of the costs covered. So the caveat is it has to cost over 75 euros in the first place. And then you only get a maximum of 200. And you apply for it after you've done the repair. And I looked at the application form, and it is a shockingly simple one-page application form asking some very basic information. I was very surprised that it was not at all bureaucratic. So I predict a wave of Corona bonus-style fraud, or alleged fraud at least. Maybe be very careful, because everybody who applied for that Corona bonus money, some of them are still being investigated by police for alleged fraud when they were just poor freelancers. They're still dragging on these cases, yeah.
They should just let it. It was a fucking plague.
Super scared.
And you finally gave us some money, and Volkswagen have been cheating us out of everything. We're bailing them out here, there, and everywhere. If you had the get up and go to fill out one of these bloody forms, take your money.
Yes, so
Sorry.
I agree, although there was actually some real Corona fraud, but most of it wasn't. Yeah. So this particular scheme for your electronics, you're only ever going to be able to cheat the state out of a maximum of 200 euros. So anyway.
Worth it?
There is only a maximum of just over €1 million in funding, and this will probably not be renewed yet next year because the city is trying to save money. So if you want to go and repair your toaster or your or whatever it is, then you should do so as quickly as you can to get that money. So if you've got a busted foot spa, now's your chance to go fix it. And I looked it up. Foot spas are on the list, a very long list of allowable electronics. If you want to get this money, you've got to go to the website of the Investitionsbank Berlin, or IBB. The IBB is also the body that is in charge of handing out money for installing solar panels on rented apartments. So we have mentioned this before on Radio Spätkauf, that tenants can apply to get up to 500 euros of funding to cover the cost of installing solar panels on your balcony. You can wrap them around the outside of your balcony. And 500 euros will often cover the entire cost. However, you need approval from your landlord to be able to do this. And up until now, landlords, including mine, because I asked, have been refusing to grant approval for this. But starting in a few weeks, in October, a new law will come into effect that means landlords cannot deny your request. You'll still need a letter from them asking for their consent, but they can't reject it. I don't know why you need a letter at all. But apparently the bureaucrats have decided that you still need a letter from the landlord saying, I begrudgingly approve your request and will now make your life hell from now on since you've gone against my wishes. Anyway, but so you can now all go out and get solar panels on your balcony, and you all should, to help be part of the green energy transition. Unfortunately, I couldn't get any solar panels that actually fit my balcony because my balcony is weird, and you have to actually fit them on. It's a bit strange.
Just out of interest, when you asked your landlord, did he give a reason why he didn't want it?
Nope.
Okay, just said no. I don't like it.
Did you think landlords are required to tell their peons what their thought process is? No.
I don't know.
And lastly, in the short news section, police...
Yeah, there's longer news coming. Get ready.
That's the short news. Oh, blimey.
So police suspect an arson attack was to blame for the fire in the parking garage of Neukölln Arkaden on Monday, the 9th of September. 12 cars standing alongside each other were set on fire on Monday, closing down the garage completely. Luckily, no one was harmed, and the fire was extinguished relatively quickly at around 10 p.m. after having been noticed originally earlier in the evening. The library on the 4th floor, for anyone who needs to give back their books after the summer holiday, is still open, but the parking garage is closed for the time being. Stinger. Great. So the big news. We did short. Now we're going to do long. What are we going to do it about? How far are we in our megas, guys? Can we have an
You're going to need
shout
at least
out?
a third down.
Yeah. How are we doing?
Okay, good. I like this.
Yeah.
I like that some people also have 2 cans. One a large can of beer, and then this is what we need. It's good. Because, as I'm sure you may have seen, we have had 2 state elections in former East Germany, which have been decided in the last week or so with worrying results. In Saxony, the incumbent Minister President Martin Kretschmer's CDU won, but only by 1.3% over the AfD. The new left populist Bundeswehr Wagenknecht party came third with 11.8%. It was a disaster for the Ampel parties, who altogether only secured 16.9% of the vote. This was all largely as expected. Don't know if that makes it any better or worse.
I put that in.
You did.
So this is Saxony and Thuringia, which we're also going to get onto, which I just wanted to, because this was like a huge news story. It was internationally reported everywhere. It's like, the Germans again, look what they're doing. And the BBC and all the American news, like, these Germans.
America has a fucking...
Who sent people to die to fight them the last time.
You can't take your eyes off them for a minute.
So just to make you...
So it's just some context, just to make those people... Because these are quite small states, Thuringia and Saxony.
Yes.
The combined electorates of both, I counted it, is less than 5 million. Lower Saxony, by comparison, which is a huge state, which no one ever really cares about. It's the state where Volkswagen is, for example. It's a huge state. That has 6 million voters. The biggest state is North Rhine-Westphalia, which has 12 million voters. Also, no one cares when they vote for anything. But anyway, when the eastern states start to vote for far-right parties, then it's a big deal. So,
well, they did it the first time last time, didn't they? 1930, was it? Thuringia voted in the Nazis, and then 3 years later they were in power. So I'm just saying.
Bit of a worrying parallel amongst many worrying parallels.
It's like a cackle from the audience.
Do you ever, I was just thinking, like, when they do the bit at the beginning of the dystopian thing and they're like, look at these silly podcasters joking about this. Oh, like the mashup of all the media at the beginning of the dystopian nightmare film.
Yeah, we will be part of the historical record.
We will. Looking
Cut
like
to 5 years
clowns.
later, emaciated faces behind some mesh.
If you want some regional Thuringian politics, because in Thuringia is the most of a clusterfuck of a state, because even CDU, the BSW, which is the Bundeswehr Wagenknecht, the new sort of left-wing populist party, and the SPD, even those three together couldn't make a majority without, because they've all said they won't do a coalition with the AFD, so it's like really complicated to make coalitions. So then it's like a whole big issue about whether they should do a coalition with the Linke, which still is fairly strong in Thuringia because they have a pretty popular state premier for the last few years, Bodo Ramelow. But of course, the CDU says they don't want to get into a coalition with the Linke. They'd much prefer to do a coalition with the BSW, the Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht. And Sarah Wagenknecht was actually a card-carrying communist. And it has been recently uncovered that several of the leading members of the BSW, who were former Linke, were also Stasi members. So you'd think that the CDU would be like, nah, don't like them, but no, we're going to have to. They're going to have to do a coalition with them, which is a bit.
I
weird.
think it also tells you kind of everything you need to know about BSW, right? I mean, I don't like the term like left-wing populist. It's more like socially conservative economic populist, I think is like probably a much more accurate way of explaining them, because they're not left. I mean,
she's just going to stand for whatever gets her into. She terrifies me on like a visceral level. Like I can't even. She's a nightmare.
So why is it that the CDU makes that distinction? They're both parties of the left, and they're both. Is it just because the CDU's gone for so many years, going, oh, we can't join up with the left, and now they've got like this other left party? They go, oh, we'll join with them because we haven't said we won't before.
Basically, yeah.
They just box themselves into a corner.
That's
okay.
That's sort of what's happened, and it's doubly more complicated because the one issue that they're all really that has made the BSW what it is their opposition to supporting Ukraine and making peace. They want to make peace with Russia, and that is the one issue that the CDU for the last 2 years since the war began has been like pushing Scholz about and saying, oh, you're not sending Ukraine enough weapons, and the Greens are not sending the Ukraine enough weapons, and now they are. Now they said, actually, we're going to do this coalition with this funny little party who are against all that anyway. So,
but Martin Kretschmer is a big fan of Russia.
Oh, he loves Russia.
Loves it.
Yeah, he's there. Who is he? Where is he? I'm getting confused now. He's in Saxon.
Yeah, he's the state premier.
But he's been banging on about how they need to stop and like just talk to Putin. Like, have you tried just talking to him?
Well, have you?
In fairness, no. But I'm not sure Martin has either, to be honest, because Putin would be like, fuck off, you little squirt.
Shall I read some more results?
Yeah,
because
I
should have put this
Thuringia one.
It says even more worrying. I want to get there.
Yeah.
Even more worrying, however, were the results in Thuringia, where the AFD won 32.8% of the votes. That's 9.2 points higher than the next party, which was the CDU, on 23.6. The traffic light coalition parties had an absolute shocker. Together, they secured only 10.4% of the votes.
Jesus. Tell us about like this German word that we all learnt last week, which is the Sperrminorität that we all Googled ferociously on Google last week.
Yes. Also worrying is the fact that with 32.8% in Thüringen, the AFD have enough seats to be seriously disruptive in the state parliament, even if no one will play their reindeer games. They have what's called a Sperrminorität, blocking minority, which means they can destabilize the whole state government. Some options have varying degrees of probability, but they'll basically just be able to make it really difficult to get anything through, either by just like saying, no, we're not going to do that, we're not going to do that, we're not going to do that. So what that will mean is that parties who've said absolutely no way will we collaborate with them, in order to actually be able to do anything, they will have to collaborate with them, and thus the AFD will have an influence. In the chilling words of the Mitteldeutscher Rundfunk, governing Thuringia is not possible with or without the AFD, which means that the AFD can drive Thuringia to the brink of ungovernability.
It's all
Take another's way.
Well, just like crazy people running around the streets, which are
just
they
be
probably
a
are.
nightmare.
Yeah, so basically the Sperrminorität, it means more than a third of the seats in parliament, and which is what the AFD have comfortably got. They've got 32 out of 88, and that means that they can block anything that requires a 2/3 majority in the Thuringian parliament, which would include dissolving the parliament to call another election, changing the Thuringian constitution, electing constitutional court judges, and electing the president of something called the Landesrechnungshof, which is basically the state's official audit office. I don't know why I did that. It's really boring. Maybe it'd be interesting for you.
But no,
the audit
it's not
office.
boring.
But but the Landesrechnungshof, I mean, who knows what that is? But yeah, anyway, that is important because these are posts that need to be filled for the government to function.
And there's an issue with the Constitutional Court as well.
Yeah, so that's something different. This is all like kind of a lesson for the whole of Germany, because internationally we've seen what happens when right-wing populists come to power, especially in Poland and in Hungary. We've had these issues where these kinds of parties come to power, like in Poland it was the PIS party. And one of the first things they did was like undermine the independence of the Constitutional Court. And now, with the AfD having this success in Germany, there's every chance that they could have a similar sort of vote share in the next election, which is only a year away, 2025. And then they could start undermining the Constitutional Court, because we've seen that already happen in Poland and Hungary. And so now what is already underway in Germany is that the other parties that are not the AfD are kind of bringing in a package of measures to kind of safeguard the Constitutional Court, which would be really important.
How is this not already a thing?
Well,
like your whole country is built on this, like, never again, embedded in the Grundgesetz. Like,
so the Constitutional Court, they could basically help appoint judges or block the appointment of judges. Is that what they could do there? Right.
Or they could say, instead of whatever it is now, I think 12 judges, they could say, in this case we'll have 20 judges, and we will the Parliament can choose them, and then they could pack the Parliament with like AfD friendly judges. I mean, things like that could happen if they don't change the rules, which they're doing now, hopefully.
Well, I've got to say, I don't think the Constitutional Court could get any worse, but maybe it could. But this is the Constitutional Court.
Knock on that wood there, Joel.
Yes,
You want to touch it? Uh-huh.
Just to say that the Constitutional Court of Germany is the same court that destroyed the Berlin Mietendeckel, which was, if you all recall, from our spin-off called Rent Freeze so long ago, I can't even remember. But there was this magical period where there looked like we could have 5 years of no more rent increases. But the Constitutional Court ruled that was not constitutional, although there were plenty of legal experts who disagreed with that. It was not a fait accompli that they had to rule that way. They just decided to. It's also the Constitutional Court that ruled that Germany could not spend 60 billion euros on climate change mitigation. It couldn't use this money that had been allocated for the corona pandemic to then roll over and use it for the climate change purposes, which left this huge hole in the budget, which meant that every department had to cut money, and it was a big disaster last year. So thanks Constitutional Court for those decisions. Let's see how much worse it could get once the AfD gets to start appointing them or blocking the
There's an irony, isn't it, that those decisions have kind of, I mean, not specifically, I don't want to blame the Constitutional Court for everything, but like this squeeze and squeeze and squeeze on people's living standards and people's sense of like hope and investment in the society that they live in, and ability to like live in an affordable apartment, and ability to kind of look forward to a transformation that is actually well funded and includes like jobs for Germans, kind of it's sort of like all of these decisions over the course of the last, I guess, like 16 years or so, 20 years worth of like lack of investment, they've kind of led us here. There's an irony to that these institutions are now being undermined.
That's a very good point, because one of the worrying statistics coming from these eastern states that have got these really high numbers for the AfD is how many, like one of the huge gains that the AfD made were in the 16 to 24 range. And a lot of the analysis is, and that would kind of stand up with sort of what I'm seeing as well, though I deal with a very different demographic, is real pessimism about the climate, about the future, about the economy. And like, if you think about it, maybe you're living in East Germany, like your nearest like big city is Berlin, you want to go there, but like, how could you possibly ever? Because you're never going to be able to afford an apartment. It's full of foreigners like me who have taken the apartment. Like it is, that's a...
Let's not tell them about the Draghi report, okay?
No. Keep that away from your teens, everybody.
Lock it up.
Yeah.
Okay, so like on, future news that is not necessarily like hopeful, we've got another election coming up, a state election that surrounds Berlin, like all around us, the people all around us are going to vote. And they are in a state called Brandenburg, which we like going to lakes in and so forth. So, yeah, the SPD has been ruling Brandenburg for the majority of the last 3 decades since unification. People are thinking that that will now change because polls are looking quite scary, but not as scary as in Saxony or Thuringia. So the AfD is currently polling at 24%, the SPD is on 20%, the CDU is on 19%, and the BSW is on 17%. So kind of like a fair split between the 4 biggest parties. The AfD is polling around 7 to 10% lower than in the other state elections, so that's quite interesting, and it's partly because of the strength of the SPD that has ruled over Brandenburg for the majority of the last 3 decades, and it's also partly to do with the fact that Berliners seeking affordable accommodation are starting to move out to these places. So encourage your friends and loved ones to take that step and go live by the See. Mein Haus am See. I will vote for the left. So,
I know one other fact about Brandenburg.
Tell me.
There's an even more acute teacher shortage in Brandenburg than there is in
Get
Berlin.
paid more.
They get paid more, I don't know, but they need teachers even more in Brandenburg, so...
Off you go.
Off you go. It's going to become a teacher.
I would do that.
Yeah, this was slightly terrifying. So politics is starting to actually infect the atmosphere of cultural institutions and everyday life. In Frankfurt Oder, for instance, one of Brandenburg's largest cities, the university has frequent reports of racist abuse hurled at racially diverse students and SS runes and swastikas painted on the walls of sports clubs. The university has been trying to counter the culture of hate that it sees as having grown in the past weeks and months with their Frankfurt bleibt bunt campaign, or Frankfurt stays diverse. However, it has recently seen a drop in the number of students moving to Frankfurt to study at the Viadrina from 6,000 in 2020 to around 4,000 today. Many of those students were coming from places like India.
Yeah, they shouldn't come.
No.
Like, I'm going to be honest. Do not put your 18-year-old on a plane to come and study at Frankfurt Oder. And that is so sad. It's... I don't know. For all of us, like, sitting here feeling like how scary this is, there are people, albeit still a small minority, but who are feeling increasingly emboldened by this and like, yeah, finally the tide is turning back again, and it sucks.
What if,
Joel has his hand up.
Joel has his hand up, but I have my back to him, so I didn't see.
That's fine.
So yeah, what if like never again is actually just not the same ones as last time?
Well, then it's not again, is it? It's different. Different values, you know. So times have changed.
Konrad, you write about this stuff for a living. So break it down, big picture. What's this actually doing? They haven't actually won, and they're not in power. They're just very big, but they're not in power, and they won't be for a little while at least. So what's the threat?
So we've had a lot of figures and numbers and all this coalition gymnastics to make sure the AfD doesn't get to power. But meanwhile, it has actually become apparent that it has become very clear that AfD is driving the entire political debate in Germany all the time. And we can see that in the last few weeks. And in fact, today is September the 10th, the coalition government had a summit with the opposition CDU and other states, and they came up with this package of measures to restrict asylum seekers' rights and to increase deportations. I noticed actually, someone pointed this out on Instagram, where I get some of my news. This idea of deporting people because they don't happen to have a German passport, deporting people like what they call criminal refugees or criminal migrants, was actually a policy of the NPD, which is like the pre-AfD Nazi party, tiny little fringe party. And if you go on the internet and have a look on campaign posters of the NPD back in 2009, 2010, 2011, just before the AfD was founded, you find that they have these posters that say, I won't repeat the actual racist slogan that it says, but they said, we want to deport criminal migrants. That is our policy. And that was an NPD policy 2009. And now it is essentially the official policy of the German government and all of the major parties. So that's just one example. That's just to give you an idea of where we are in Germany at the moment.
So the major parties are all being pushed to the right just by the presence of the AfD and their rise. So here's a question. How long do we all have to get our dual citizenship before they try and revoke that? Like, I'm serious.
18 months.
We've got an election in a year, don't we?
year.
Federal election in 1 year. Is that like hurry up and get your applications in? Because
I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that will be one of the first things they will repeal if the CDU gets
that's
to power.
going.
From pure like only got an anecdote of this the other day, but a friend was trying to get an Einbürgerungstest, which is the test that you need to do to get German citizenship. There apparently you need to get an appointment for the test, and you cannot get an appointment in Berlin. So if you're thinking about getting German citizenship, just get an appointment for the Einbürgerungstest, because that's going to take a while. So get on it right now.
Yeah, I started looking at it. I'm
idiots.
We talked about doing this like on the podcast. I will take us all through it. I started trying to get an Einbürgerungstest the other day, and I couldn't even understand how it's going to be so bad. And it's such a I don't know.
I actually have like a really beautiful Einbürgerungstest story. I don't know if you should we do it? Okay, so I did my Einbürgerungstest on the German-Polish border, because back then also it was difficult to get a date in Berlin. It was 2019. And I did it with this woman at a Volkshochschule, and she had two students doing the Einbürgerungstest. There was me, and there was this like old man from England. And I was like, we're refugees, because it was Brexit. It was like, we're doing it because of Brexit. And he was like, I'm not a refugee, I'm a British man. And I was like, okay, he doesn't get my humor. But the woman at the Volkshochschule, we got on super well. And she told me about her life in the GDR and how her life had changed after unification, and about childcare. And she was kind of like selling the GDR to me a lot. And I'm like kind of predisposed to that kind of stuff anyway. So I was like really interested. And we got on super well. And then at the end, I said, I feel weird about saying at the end of the day, I'm becoming a German, because I'm so not German, I'm British. And she said to me, no, you're staying European. I loved that.
That's nice.
So
it's a different time.
There are a lot of people who are getting citizenship. I know them at work. I've heard stories. People are becoming Germans, right? So Konrad, tell me, in all of this, has there been any calculation of the political effect of those new citizens on the electoral balance? Because there are potentially, if I counted right, 5 million people in Germany who now have the right to become citizens. And although they all won't be citizens by the time of the next election, a certain number of them will. And surely that's a vote out there that some party could chase. And is that going to change the calculations? And has anyone actually calculated that?
Not that I'm aware of, but yeah, I totally agree. I think that is something that people that hopefully will change the balance of the elections in general, yeah.
Because that's a lot of people, if they can all get their citizenship. Is that going to somehow counter the rise of the AfD? Can we actually... And also, is there any party that's actually speaking to these new Germans? Because these new Germans are from a diverse backgrounds, but many of them also are going to be conservative migrants, right? And if the conservative parties are going hard right, like anti-migrant, who's speaking to the conservative migrants who are looking for a party to vote for?
I think they will vote AfD. I mean, that will...
You think the migrants who've just become German are going to vote AfD?
No, they might have to change... I think there's some people say that the people of Russian background are often quite right-wing.
Big fans.
And they often vote, and they are often already German. I don't know. People of Turkish background traditionally vote SPD, and that might happen. But then again, when because I think Erdogan has allowed Turkish 54 people living in Germany to vote, and most of them vote for Erdogan, and he's pretty right wing. Yeah,
there was that referendum that happened about 6-7 years ago, and German Turkish population voted, I think, 54% for that referendum, which was like a kind of like an anti-democratic referendum, and sort of sealed his power.
I mean, I definitely think there's no guarantee that people of migrant background will vote for left-wing parties.
Not left-wing, that's what I'm saying. Okay. But they would want to vote Conservative, but who could they vote for? They're not going to go vote for the AfD, which is a party whose members attend secret conferences where they talk about kicking all the migrants out. Surely they're not going to go for the AfD. So there's got to be what I'm saying is there must be at some point a political party that's going to wake up and realize that there's votes to be won out there if they just stop being anti-migrant. Anyway,
It might force them to. They can still be socially conservative, but not racist.
Yeah.
Like that, we forget that. Like that could be a possibility. And I think I don't know an awful lot about this, but like I know that Ontario in Canada had like a disastrous like couple of really right-wing kind of Trump-esque mayors, but they didn't have this kind of real racism as part of their platform because it's such a diverse part of the world. You can't. I don't know. Hey, CDU.
I mean, I do think that.
Merz.
Well, I definitely think that there are like that parts of the CDU that will be trying to get that vote. There are like moderate elements in the CDU and the SPD that will be thinking about that and will try to get those sort of. That is.
I salute that second can. There's really
Just for the listeners at home, that is a late stage mega opening. How did it take you this long?
No, I'm hoping
that
it's the
mega?
second one. Yeah, well done.
I just mentioned people of migrant background voting for the CDU, and someone opened another Megacan. Just like, oh God, here we go.
But I need
to move to the second one.
I think this is a general call out to all Radio Spätkauf listeners that if you can, do get your German citizenship and then directly move to either Thuringia and Saxony or Brandenburg and turn up and vote. Okay.
All right. I think the fact that people are cracking more Megacans is a sign that we need to move on.
Move on.
Woo.
Well, on the topic of right-wing proposals to send foreigners back to where they came from, Berlin is fighting to keep one of its most famous migrants in the city, despite the demands that she should be sent back. We're talking about the bust of Nefertiti, the haunting statue of the head of an Egyptian queen. It is the main draw card of the Neues Museum. Has anyone been to see Nefertiti?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I have. It's very striking when you walk in the room there and you see it so beautifully lit, and it's very it's one eye follows you around the room. The bust was taken by a German archaeological team in 1912 from Egypt, and now Egypt's former Minister of Antiquities, Zahi Hawass, has started a petition calling on Germany to return the bust of Nefertiti. Now, it's not actually the first time he has done this. He did so, he made the same demands back in 2009 and 2011. He keeps going on about it because it hasn't gone back.
I've got a story about this from history. So it's really funny how the apparently because they had a deal. So what happened was like 100 years ago, all these German archaeologists went over there, and it was all funded by the Kaiser, and they kind of sent and they dug up all this stuff. But they had an agreement saying, "Oh, but you can take some of the stuff, but not the really special stuff." And I mean, it might have been a bit more precise than that, but so it was along those lines. Apparently, someone just put the Nefertiti bust in just this other box while no one was looking, and said, "I would just put it. It's in one of these boxes." And like the Egyptian officials were like,
I think we call that stealing for people who aren't white.
Yeah. And then in Nazi Germany, I believe it was one of the big Nazis, Goering. I think it was Goering. He made a deal with Egypt. They were going to return, the Nazis were going to return it, and Hitler vetoed it personally. Hitler personally vetoed the return of the Nefertiti, according to this podcast that I recently listened to. Yeah. Where
does James Simon come into it? Because he had the Nefertiti at some point as well, and now he's got a whole wing of the museum dedicated to him.
Who's James Simon?
He was this huge benefactor of Museum Insel, and also like someone who donated a lot of artifacts. I think he was a very, very wealthy man who collected a lot of artifacts and then gave them to... It was like 1920, and he gave it to the city of Berlin, and now he has his own wing of the museum, the James Simon Gallery.
Wow.
Well, the script that you have in front of you
right.
repeats
so,
part of what Ben already told us, but still.
Oh, sorry.
Well, why say it again?
Oh, I didn't see that. If I'd have known that, I wouldn't have said it. Sorry. I hadn't turned the page yet.
Okay, so the museum says Nefertiti was taken legally under an agreement with the state of Egypt. It rejected previous requests it's quite difficult after nearly a whole mega. This is why you don't write
This is why we don't
scripts.
have a fucking script. This is a nightmare.
So there are also attempts to return the famous Pergamon altar to Turkey. To its credit, Germany has sent back some of its Benin bronzes to Nigeria. And what would Berlin do with all of its museum space if it did the right thing and sent objects back to where they came from? Good question.
More space for, I don't know, pop-up art or I don't know, parties or something.
Or like photo exhibitions of like when Berlin was like the coolest place in the world in the 90s and like everything was better then.
The brief period of time between the two waves of fascism.
Radio Spätkauf.
So to end with, and after all that heavy political news, I thought we should talk about some good things that are going on.
Tell
in
us,
Berlin.
Joel.
Please, God.
And this is complete random observation from my last month of being back here, and all the nice things that I think have changed about Berlin. So one thing is I saw my first U-Bahn carriage completely decked out with a new seat pattern. Has anyone seen a train with all the seats changed with the new seat pattern yet? They're beautiful. It's like
I like it. It's controversial. Can we have a show of hands who likes it, the new one?
That is zero hands.
No one likes
That's just you and me, Joel. Next news item.
Well, okay, it's not as good as the old one, Urban Jungle, but it's better than the intermediate one, which was that kind of grey boxy thing. So we've gone it's a step. It's better than what was on the trains, and it's kind of got this yellow hue to it, and the whole train kind of lights up with all the seats.
I like it. You're just talking to me. You're preaching to the choir here. We've got to work on this. Lot.
And that's all the good news.
That's all the good news.
No.
Sorry it was shit and you already hated it.
More good things I've discovered about Berlin, also on public transport. The Ringbahn trains, the new trains running around the Ringbahn, that they started rolling them out a while ago, but now it's pretty much every service on the Ringbahn is one of the new trains, and they're air conditioned. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yes, I've been there. So. Also, there's more ice cream shops in Berlin than ever before, and they're actually good. And they're really good, and some of them even stay open after 10 p.m., which is fantastic for me because for some reason I only get the urge to eat ice cream at like 10:35 by the time most of them have closed. But I have found some that stay open late. It's awesome.
Right, great.
Late night ice cream.
Yes. And then another fun new thing that I've noticed, there's a new slackline high ropes course built in Tempelhof. Are we pausing this point at this panpipe music playing?
Is someone trying to tell us we've been going on for too long?
It's like that bit in the Oscars when the speech has been going on for too long. Here we go.
Oh, hello.
This is
Oh,
a surprise edition. Ladies and gentlemen, we have some musicians who walked into the room. Here's your microphone. In something that has never happened before on any recording of Radio Spätkauf, two wandering minstrels have just walked in off the street and have been playing music for us. Explain yourselves.
Would you
Who
like
are
to
you?
explain, Dan?
Introduce yourself to us.
So, I am Alessandro. I was just working with my friend. Hi, I'm Jordi. We were just playing in the street because it's a nice night. It's not warm anymore like the last days. So it was nice playing until we meet this guy. He's the guilty. Look at him. He's the guilty. And for this, we are here.
So, well, he's from Italy, I'm from Spain. We were just basking 3 years ago together. I just arrived a couple of hours ago, and then we decided to go to the street to come back to the vibe. And we were just jamming along, walking down the street, and this guy say, "Hey, do you want to play in a party for $20?" And he said, "Why not?" And
yeah, I had one.
I had one Megacan.
Thank you.
Megan, do we have a Megacan for these wonderful buskers?
Oh, yes. Who's got the bag of cans?
Well, hang on. They're getting paid $20. Well, that seems like the perfect point to do an outro, but we have one more thing to read because this event is part of the Podfest Berlin 2024, and the live recordings here at Podfest Berlin are supported by Wundertax, your tax declaration tool in Germany. So thank you for supporting podcast, Wundertax. That's very nice of you.
And thank you to our wonderful live audience. You've been amazing. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's say goodbye one by one. Your name and goodbye.
I've been Megan from Megan's Megacan. I hope everyone enjoyed their Megacans. Have a lovely night.
I'm Konrad, also for Megan's Megacan. Thank you very much. I've had a wonderful night.
I'm Joel Delroy from Radio Spätkauf.
And I'm Izzy Choksy from Radio Spätkauf. And thank you all for being here. Bye-bye.
Radio Spätkauf. Berlin News in English.
Megan's Megacan. German news in English with a cocktail can. The German news, it's quite a test. With Megan's Mega, you're feeling refreshed. Ooh. Megan's Megacan. German news in English with a cocktail can. Deutsche Nachrichten sind düster und schwer. Down the Mega.
Defy the fear.
Yeah.
It's actually quite a positive message to give to people.
So.
I like to think that we have quite a positive impact on our listeners.
I hope so.
Because we try and get them to defy the fear of listening to the news all day.
I mean, it's better than reading a German newspaper. Surely.
I would definitely recommend listening to our podcast more than reading any German newspaper.
German newspapers barely have pictures. Like fucking, it's just a brick of text.
Oh yeah, and they seem to make a virtue of it. They think it's like so great to have no text.
Not like you Americans
pictures.
with your fucking
Colour pictures.
decadent pictures in your newspapers.
Yeah,
What's that? A crossword puzzle? Oh, no
You have
wonder
to-
you had Trump. Jesus Christ, everyone! Like, there's a middle ground.
You have to concentrate on the news. It's very important, and you have to keep it there.
Just have a mega.
Have a mega. Give us a picture every now and then.
Just a wee picture, maybe of,
Yeah.
a diagram.